I love today's class, and I'm so, so grateful for the power of changing prayers in my life. Yet, here's one aspect that seems to hang me up every time. I have so many negative experiences with people saying, it's God's will. I hear you. That whenever I read or hear you say, the perfect solution is already picked, I feel as if it's an affront to the intimate partnership with God that changing prayers evoke. If Spirit and I are in partnership, then isn't it more logical that God and I will together create the perfect solution? And in that moment, the function of the changing prayer is to remind me to relax and trust in the knowledge that all is well. So do you get what she's saying? She's saying, if Spirit and I are in partnership, isn't it more logical that God and I will together create the perfect solution? And in that moment, the function of the prayer is to remind me to relax and trust in the knowledge that all is well. You know, some of this may be semantics, because I would agree with you. I would say that changing prayers have many, many purposes, depending on the person. So for some people, yes, the entire purpose of the changing prayer is simply to let go and trust. However, and you know, for anyone who's been on the forum for a while, I have real problems with the idea of co-creation. And the reason why is simply not because I don't think that to some extent, well, no, I don't even want to say that. The reason I have, it's Mercury retrograde, I may have to revise myself here. The reason I have trouble with co-creation is because what it often means when most people use it, I'm not speaking for this woman, but when most people use it, what they mean is the ego will co-create with the divine what it wants. So it's kind of like shopping. You know, the ego will say to the divine, I want this partner. Here's a list of all the qualities I need them to have. Now it's your job, divine, to go out there and hunt around and bring that partner to me. Now, the reason I don't do that is because in this intimate partnership that she's talking about with the divine, I'm not talking about that. I know what she's saying when she says, you know, she kind of rolls her eyes when somebody has something horrible happen and they just sort of mechanically say, it's the divine will. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about holding a certain vibration that is very high, that comes from trusting that the highest will always occur if you align yourself with the divine. And on that level, co-creation is unnecessary. God surely doesn't need a shopping list from me. Now, that doesn't mean, I think, if you feel drawn to write one, right away. But what is funny is the reason I use that term about, you know, the perfect whatever is already picked. Some people don't like the word perfect. Sometimes they say the right one, is because I do believe, as Florence Scovel Shinn, who wrote The Game of Life and How to Play It, there's parts of that book I believe in deeply. I think they hold a deep truth. And one of them is that for any given problem, there is a divinely selected solution. And sometimes that solution is very, very different than what the ego is anticipating. So when the ego gets involved in co-creation and says, here's the following things I need, God and I will create it together, and I will keep steering God to make sure that I get what the ego wants, I haven't found that is really the highest solution. That can be what manifests a solution of some kind. It's like saying over and over and over, I needed to have, it makes me think. There was a friend of mine, for years she's a tall person, and for years she was just constantly giving this list of what the partner had to look like because she was tall. And of course, wouldn't you know it, in the end, the person she fell madly in love with was a woman who was quite short. It's just like that's the way it went. I mean, the universe could not have surprised her more, but every other quality was so exact to what she needed that she just decided it was an opportunity to let go of her rigidity about the form that this had to come in. So that's, to me, it's like I don't see it in a co-creation way. I see it in a way of saying, show me the divine will on this, because the right fit, whether you're talking about a house, a person, a job, anything, the right fit is already selected, not from the place of the ego, but from the place of the highest. And sometimes what it involves is actually a kind of surrender, but I'm trying to figure out how to say this. It's not a surrender. When something is right, you feel the rightness of it. So it's not a surrender that comes from scarcity. An example of that would be like a job comes along, and you know it's a job you're going to hate. You know it's a job you don't want to take. The writing is all over the wall. And then somebody says, well, you better take it. You better take it because you don't know if something else is going to come along, and, you don't want to say no to the universe. No. Sometimes, and you start to really be able to feel this from a deep inner place, something comes along and you sense the rightness of saying no. And you're absolutely guided from the inside to say no. That's a different story than when something comes along and it doesn't exactly match what you thought, but you feel this profound rightness to it. Do you see what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. Like when this woman said yes to this relationship, she was laughing because she was like, oh man, if I was trying to manifest this from a place of the ego, I would have never picked somebody who was short. And yet, this person makes me like insanely happy. So what am I going to do? It feels absolutely right. That's how you can tell. So I'm talking about something, the rightness is coming from that place of saying the divinely selected right fit for whatever. And I do believe that is already selected. Not in a fatalistic way, but in a sense of if you do a changing prayer that says, shift me into somebody who's open to the highest outcome. Shift me into somebody who can relax and trust that the right outcome is already picked. You move out of that burden of having to be the one to force it or carry it or push it. I'll go back to the example of Seattle. If I was saying, God and I together are going to make this happen, I would then be carrying the burden of going, how many places do I need to advertise and how many people do I need to tell and blah, blah, blah. I'm not doing that. I'm saying the right solution is already picked for Seattle. If that workshop's meant to occur, that's perfect. And all the right things will flow for it to occur. I've taken the actions that are needed. If it's not meant to occur, I'm absolutely happy to let it go because the divine plan always provides everything needed. So do you see what I mean? It creates this space. Now you could say it's a partnership with the divine, But for me, it's more my inner small self bowing to the great self inside me. And I love that surrender. I love it. I love it because I want it. And so it's to me like, even when certain things are baffling or confusing, when you invite that bow, everything just starts to flow, because it flows in the direction of what's needed. And sometimes what's needed is just wait for now. Or, no, you don't need the partner right now. You need it at the end of the summer. Or even if it looks like you need a job right now, actually what you need are 2 weeks off. Sometimes that happens to people. They're looking for a job. It's Mercury retrograde. They're watching their money go down, and they're thinking, oh, my God, I better go make it happen. And the universe is saying, I know you're getting scared, but actually take 2 weeks and clean out your house and clear out your clutter and, go to the beach, do a few things, get some rest, and then we'll bring the job when Mercury goes direct. So, they're all examples of moving with the divine flow, and they often can happen when you release yourself from the burden of having to be the one creating it, and you say the right solution is picked, then you get shown the actions from the divine. Anyway, I hope that helps. It could be semantics, or it could just be a difference in approach, but I'm trying to share how I see it and how I use it really every day myself. Thank you for that question, and I'm glad you're in the forum now. I'm glad you joined us.